All right. All right. Welcome, welcome. Hey. Cool. Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to today's call. Do I see Kyle on here? I see Kendra.
Yeah, I'm here, Pablo.
Hey, man. What's going on, brother? Kendra, I'm going to make you co-host. If you can let some folks in.
Alrighty.
And we're excited. Let's get rolling. We're going to pick off picked off at second. No, we're going to pick up where we left off last week. And last week we had a great call, right? We had a new licensee who's a CPA, I think out here in the Mid-Atlantic in Maryland, Virginia, Maryland area. And it was funny, right? Like we had a scheduled time that we were going to get together and just have a conversation and really kind of walk through all of his questions as a new licensee, all the things that a new licensee wants to know. And generally, one of the first things that we do, and this gentleman hadn't done it yet, was we say, hey, make sure you go through some of the training, right? Make sure you go through the EP Docs homepage on the university. Make sure you go through the EP Docs Facebook page and kind of go through the training. So he hadn't done any of that yet, but or maybe he had, but he still had a lot of the same questions. So what we did was we just tackled them head on, and really had a really good power hour where we almost had like a business plan and, business questions that were answered on that call. So if you guys, again, if someone's brand new, and you're wondering, hey, how is this going to be applied to my business? I would, urge you to go back to guides in the Facebook group and take a look at that video. It's also on our YouTube channel, which is just Coach Pablo 1, right? So if you look at that, it's at Coach Pablo 1, and you can find the recording of that. But this week we're going to pick up where we on what we were going to actually discuss at that point until we had that one-on-one great conversation, which was about objection handling. So before we do that, again, I want to welcome everyone to the call. Again, we do the EP Docs Power Hour every week, every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And for those of you that are new or you've been under a rock, what is EP Documents? We are your partner for affordable, comprehensive online estate planning solutions that your clients deserve, right? It's an attorney drafted and state specific documents to keep you worry-free and keep your client's legacy protected. Our mission is to keep families out of the heart-wrenching process of probate and to ensure that their assets and legacies can be passed on to their loved ones, right? In your conversations, you should really just know that these three things. This is what opens up the opportunity for you, is that 81% of Americans do not have a living trust. Okay. And over the next 20 years, over the next 21 years, 84 trillion in wealth transfers is going to take place. $84 trillion in wealth transfer is going to take place over the next 20 years. And so, the majority of that, 72.6 trillion, is going to be transferred to heirs, right? While the rest is going to be transferred and donated to charities, but 72.6 trillion is going to be transferred to people's children, their loved ones, their spouses, and those represent our clients, right? The clients, the people that we represent. And so again, to kind of put a cherry on top, in this opportunity is that our clients, as we know, there's 5,700, actually today it's probably closer to 6,000 baby boomers that are passing away on average every single day. So these are people right now that have questions, that don't have their ducks in a row, so to speak, right? And so they're looking to make sure that their heirs receive what's rightfully theirs, what they want, with the legacies that they've built up over their time period. And of course, the baby boomers, they were probably one of the best savers that we've had in our country's history. Well, they're going to have questions, right? Then not only do they want to protect what they have to be able to pass it on, but they're going to have questions about these things. They're going to have questions about their real estate. They're going to have questions about their insurance policies. They're going to have questions about their old, um, retirement plans, whether it's at an old company or an old IRA. They're going to have questions about these things. I talk with teachers almost on a daily basis who no one talks to them. These state representatives that are supposed to help them with their retirement and their pension. I literally just got off a call before I got on here. A teacher who's been teaching in the state of South Carolina for 26 years. Question that I ask on every call, on every first call, is, hey, so, when's the last time you talked to someone like me? Or, have you ever done any, a call like this? She literally said, never. Okay. And this was an intelligent, 50-year-old, seventh and eighth grade history teacher. And, she had been saving, but she literally has had no one talk to her about this stuff. Okay. So those are our clients. That's a very, it's a very good example of the kind of clients and the representation that we have. So again, kind of bringing it back, right? How do we bring this opportunity to those clients? Well, EP Docs is simple, guys. It's kind of like TurboTax meets estate planning, right? I share that with a teacher. I was like, hey, have you done your will and your trust and your powers of attorney and guardianship and all those documents? She's like, no. I said, listen, we have a real simple solution. It's kind of like you're familiar with TurboTax. It's kind of like TurboTax meets estate planning. It's an online software solution, and we have it done for you. We can literally help walk you through and get that set up in the matter of a couple phone calls. Okay. And we can make sure and help you ensure that you're going to have your legacy, your assets passed on to your children, in the way that you'd like it to, and not be held up in probate. Are you familiar with probate? Oh my goodness, I just went through that with my mom, and it was the worst. I wouldn't, wish it on my enemy. Those are the kinds of things we hear. Okay, so then we just say, let's get you set up on a discovery call. That's what EP Docs does. That's the power of it, right? So it really all just starts with having the right conversation. What EP Docs is not, guys, we're not a trust mill. We're not an MLM, right? And we're certainly not attorneys or offer legal advice. Our documents are attorney drafted and state specific, right? So it's that work has already been done and developed on the back end, and it's decision tree based software, right? If you learn that term decision tree based, all that means is that the way that a certain questions and prompts are answered in the software, starting with the name and if it's a single or dual grantor and what state it's in, all the other documents are going to fall in line to match those previous answers, right? So you're not going to find the state of New Jersey documents in a state of Maryland estate plan, right? And so everything else previous to that is going to create the appropriate documents. So guys, I just want to put that out there. I know for some of you are like, oh my goodness, I already know this. Not everyone does, and you'll be surprised at some of the emails that we get. Okay. But let's get into the topic today. Let's get into the topic of today, which is objection handling, right? So we just went through that, but let's get through objections, right? So we're talking to clients, and I'm going to bring on Alex to kind of walk through this with me. But Alex, let's just set the table a little bit. With regards to objections, right? I think there's a very simple, like, knee-jerk response to objections, right? Like if someone has an objection, then like, what am I going to say immediately after? But the truth is, objections shouldn't be a thing that we reactively respond to. It should be something that we proactively guard against, right? And kind of set up an approach where we knock objections down before they're even mentioned. Would you agree there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's always better to answer an objection before it comes up. And in my experience in sales in general, objections there's only like maybe 3 major ones in anything you sell that you just have to be good at handling. There's not a lot, honestly. And objections, I don't know who said it, Zig Ziglar, and someone said it, that objections are a sign of interest. Like if you weren't getting objections, it's the passive aggressive client that doesn't voice any objections are the ones you gotta worry about, because there's no interaction, and you got to get them to move one way or the other, because you can't steer a parked car, right? So you got to steer, even if it's going backwards, you can steer it. If it's going forwards, you can steer it. But if it's sitting there doing nothing and there's no momentum going one way or the other, then you're dead in the water. That's why objection handling, it's like you look forward to it, actually, because that there's movement going.
So, and here's the thing, I've got like 5 like main objections that typically come up, right? And for those of you that don't know, if you want to go and like take a look at these later, these are available in your estate plan documents manual. Okay, it's the same 5. And I'll put them up on the screen here in just a moment. But I think that, would you agree that if we know then kind of what generally the objections are, we can start to plan for them and almost have it like, I mean, listen, I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old, right? And I pretty much know what their objections are when it's time to take a bath, time to get to bed, time to eat your vegetable. Like, I know what they're going to say, right? And so knowing that, I know how to respond, but I also now, as a smarter parent, I know what to say before it's even that time, right? I've gotten Alex to the point where it's like, I know how to kind of, I know how to prime the pump, right? And I know how to say, hey, listen, because you've been so good, and because you've got, had a chance to play outside all day and you got to do everything that you want. You enjoyed that, right? Yes. And you want to be able to do that tomorrow, right, Luca? Yes. Fantastic. Well, hey, guess what? As soon as we're done this, we got 15 minutes to go. As soon as we're done that, we're going to go and take a 5-minute shower and just get that out of the way. Are you okay with that? That's good, Daddy. I'm like, yes. But before, it was a nightmare. It was getting them to, to come inside, getting them to go upstairs, getting them to take off their clothes. I mean, it was like, it literally was that difficult. And I don't see this any different. If we know what a customer is going to say as far as what's holding me back, we should be able to build that in up front. And so, what I'd like to do is just kind of take some time and go through these 5 client objections. And I'll just throw them up on the screen kind of one by one. Alex, maybe we can go through them. And I do have, so for some of you that are like, okay, well, I'm at the earlier stage where I don't already know what these objections are. And I literally had somebody ask me. And so what do I say when they do ask me? So what I'd like to do, Alex, is maybe you can talk about how to build this in up front, right? Build in the objection up front so we can kind of tackle it before they even say it. And then I can also share, hey, what do you say when you didn't do that and when the customer asks that? So let me take a look here. I'll pull that right back up. And by the way, there's some questions that are coming into the chat. Kyle, can you do me a favor and just let me know if I would say if you've got questions and things like that, guys, go ahead and drop them into the chat. If it's relevant to what we're sharing right now, we can actually pause and discuss it. But maybe if it's something that we can talk about towards the end of the call, we'll save some time to do that as well. Okay. All right. So let's get into that first objection. So the first one is, this is generally what we hear. And these are no particular order. I'm not comfortable using an online platform for getting my estate planning done. I am not comfortable with using an online platform for getting my estate planning done. So this one kind of seems straightforward, Alex. I mean, But how would you build this into your conversation when someone is, considering getting their estate plan done and possibly using us versus, some of the other options that they have out there, including going straight to an attorney?
Yeah, this kind of has multiple facets to it. So there, the way to handle it before you get it is when you explain that it's the analogy. Like it's always good to use analogies, right? So the analogy is, TurboTax meets estate planning. Yeah, do you still fill out your taxes manually on a 1040 form, or how do you handle that? And most people that I know, they use software programs like TurboTax, or you can even file online your taxes online with the IRS, right? So this is no different than technology being used today to do anything. You apply for a mortgage online, hardly anything's ever done on paper. So that's why our estate planning tool is so powerful, is that it is a repository of all your estate planning information that's kept in a encrypted cloud. And then you can make unlimited changes whenever you want without having to resort to paper. And that's how most attorneys use the paper process for you, to keep you captured to them. Now I don't know if you know this, but attorneys use software programs to create estate plans. You know that, right? So they're not doing anything different. They're putting all your information into a database platform, software platform, to create your estate plan. And, so this is where you can use kind of those two things. If someone ever asks me this, and honestly, I don't get this one. Okay.
Right.
I don't get this one because most people that I'm meeting with, either on Zoom or face to face, I usually have my laptop with me, right? So I'm automatically, I don't get this one a lot, just because in the process they're already sold on that the fact that it is online. But usually objection handling is so the formula for handling objections one-on-one, like if someone brings it up, is so you do a pattern interrupt, called pattern interrupt. So you use a softening statement. So, oh, well, that's a great question. We get that question sometimes. Okay. But let me ask you, what is it that you're not comfortable with, right? So objection handling is not being the shell answer man.
Right.
It's not firing back an answer, because then what you do is you create an antagonistic debate with the client, and you're in debate mode where you want to win the debate. But when it comes to sales, you never win a debate with a client. Never, ever. That's why you never want to get into debate. So that's why you always fire a question with a question. Well, that's an interesting question. We do get that sometimes on occasion from clients, but let me ask you, what are you not comfortable with doing an online platform? Because this objection is such a nebulous one. There's so many reasons, and it usually will come back to an emotional reaction to getting their data compromised, right?
Mm.
So they'll go into the data compromise, because this is what fuels the objection. Remember, the important thing about handling objections is knowing the root cause of the objection. Because once you know the root cause of the objection, then you know how to deal with it. And this is where, I'm not comfortable with online platform. It's like, and then you start asking questions. Oh, I'm curious, sounds like you had a bad experience. What was your bad experience? So you go assumptive. I love doing this. You can tell I love handling objections. So you go assumptive. So it sounds like you had a bad experience online. What happened? Well, and then they tell you what it is, like, oh man, yeah, yeah. So you do a lot of the, do the sucking sound. Oh man, if I were you, I'd definitely feel the same way, not being comfortable. Can I help you understand a little bit more about our process. And then boom, boom, you go into our encryption, you go into, the data is private data between you and me. I mean, you kind of list all the things. And we have all those as far as the encrypted nature. Now, look, if you can't get them over this one, then you can't get it. Then they're not working with us.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
That was the whole point. One of the major points of working with us was that it was online, right?
yep.
And so that's good. And it's funny, right? I mean, clearly Alex knows his stuff. I mean, and if I look at, just the direct answer, it's almost verbatim what Alex was saying, right? Even though our process is cloud-based and online, it is software. And it clearly states, and again, this is in your manual, no one writes documents anymore, including attorneys. They subscribe to a software that generates the documents that you pay for, right? They first collect the information in the form of an interview or a questionnaire, and that information is then entered into their software, which in turn generates the documents that's needed. Our process is no different, right? We collect the information, enter it into our software, but then what I love, and I want to add on to what Alex said, was just what's the differentiator, right? I love the pattern interrupt, but then it's like, all right, so let's, just so you know, right? Attorneys are using software to draft, and so we're no different in drafting our documents. But here's a differentiator, right? So for example, an attorney may tell you that if you have a disabled child, and you need a special needs trust, well, that's the special need trust provision. That trust itself can be a separate trust altogether, right? And so that provision is to help, to make sure that your child can still keep their Social Security, disability income, and benefits. That they'd be eligible, keep them eligible to receive that for the rest of their life, right? But the special needs trust can be its own trust itself. However, to simplify it within our software, which is an online system, we built it right in. It's not a separate document. It's not a separate trust that you'd have to go and like pay for. It's all part of it. So really, this is a great thing on top of the, keeping your information secure, keeping it private. It won't go into the public's eye. Everything that you and I share will stay here. Again, that the idea of software being an issue should not be an issue, to be honest. Like, I don't even know, to be like, as I'm looking at this, and as Alex said, I never get this. I never get this either.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
10 years ago you would have gotten it.
yeah. The other thing too, so when you deal with an objection, then you're selling the positive. So when you move from an objection line, you can actually do this on most objection handling, is you go from answering this objection using analogy stories, and then you go into, but let me tell you why most people like working with us. Okay, so you put everyone in the most people. So no one wants to be kind of that, well, some people like to be rebels, but, people in general, so what do most people do? That's what people usually ask. So you say, well, most people, the reason why they like working with us is they like the aspect of being in total control of their estate plan, where they can make unlimited changes instead of having to go to a lawyer where the lawyer is in total control, having to pay $250, $350 an hour for a lawyer to make one little change. So that's why most clients like working with us, because they like to be in total control of their assets and how it goes to their family. They can make unlimited changes. Now, is that what you were looking for? Or were you looking for something completely different? So when you end the positive aspect of this, which to me controls everything, which a lot of people like to, who's going to say, no, I don't like being in control. So you're loading up a question right that way. And then you give them the optometrist choice. You give them two choices. Is that what you're looking for? Or were you looking for something completely different? Right. And so what it does is it continues keeping the conversation in a forward motion, because they're not going to, it's not a yes or no. Is that what you're looking for? You're looking for something completely different. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Oh, no, I was looking for something completely different. Oh, well, tell me more about that. See, you're never stuck. You keep moving forward. You're steering the car is moving forward by asking questions. So does that make sense, Pablo?
100%. I love that. Keep it moving forward. And I do love I do love the questions that make it so obvious to like what the answer should be, that like, do you want to be in control? I mean, how many clients have you talked to? Like, no, I don't. One of the questions I ask our teachers is, hey, do you want to just, in order to build yourself a good retirement, do you want to put away some money, some more money now and make sure that you're doing it right? Or do you just want to work another 10 years? Like which one, what do you, the answer's yours. I don't want to work another 10 years. Of course not. Okay.
And you have to stay super away from being cynical or sarcastic. You have to do it with a very nurturing attitude. Like you're really wanting to guide the client, even though you load a question like that, you're in very much nurture mode, therapist mode. Therapist mode is, you're kind in asking the question, even though the question's loaded.
That's right. That's right. Let's move on to the next one. Share my screen again. So the second question is, this is a serious decision. Alex, this is a serious decision for me to make. I need to give this some thought. Right? The old, I need to think about it. I need to pray on it. I need some time for the serious decision. Now, I know this isn't one that's gone away. This has been here since the beginning of time. How do we approach this one? But even before it gets asked, right? Like how can we kind of preload this objection? And where should we be doing that?
Yeah. Well, when you're doing a discovery call and explain the program to them, you're hitting these points as you're discussing, and there's ways to bring it. You can be really bold and saying, here are some of the main questions that people have. For example, we have people that are uncomfortable about this being an online platform, and this is why this is a totally safe process. Boom. And this one, now we have some people that say, they got to think about it. It's a serious decision they have to make. Stuff. We absolutely agree with that. In fact, here's what's great about our platform is that the problem that most people have is just getting this on paper, just getting it started. And what's great about this platform is you have the opportunity to get your estate plan started. So as you make decisions, because this is a serious decision process, but you can make all your initial decisions right away, and then you have unlimited access to change your decisions along the way. What most people do with lawyers, because they're paying them $350 an hour, is they feel like every decision is an important one because it's going to be locked on a piece of paper that the lawyer controls, and then you get a signed witness notarized. And that's where they feel like, oh my gosh, they're wringing their hands over these decisions. Whereas here's what's great about our process is that you fill out, we help you fill out the online software platform with all your decisions, and you just make quick decisions as you feel like you want to make it right now. And then you can get it started, and then you can solidify those over time. So instead of having 1 week or 2 weeks to decide, you have the rest of your lifetime to decide. Does that make sense? Now you're probably going to ask me, what do you mean you have the rest of my lifetime? Well, whatever decisions you make up front in your estate plan is something you can change later. So if you decide that you don't want to be resuscitated, or you want to have every means medically available to resuscitate you when you die, you can decide 20 years from now that, nah, just let me go. So you can make that decision 20 years from now. You make a decision about a certain family member that you don't want them to receive certain assets, and then down the road you reconcile with that family member, decide, hey, you know what, they're back in the will, they're back in my estate plan. You can add that later. So what's great about this platform is there's never a final decision. Does that make sense to you? So this is a serious decision, but it's a series of small decisions that you can make today to get it done, put together, and then you can make changes along the way. So that's kind of how,
I've got a question, Alex. Do you have to get things re-notarized every time a change is made?
Yes, except
Good
for the
question.
asset part. The assets aren't notarized. Those are just changes you can make. But any part of it, like for example, if they change their advanced directive, well, then all you do is print that section out, and then they can get that signed, witnessed, and notarized, and then you can upload it. And the great thing about the software, and this is also part of that, every new change is uploaded and memorialized. So you can see every change that happened prior to the most recent change. So that's one thing the client never has to worry about is the most recent thing that I see on paper, the one that's valid. And we can look in the software platform to see that the most recent change is valid. And again, another key reason not to have different versions of paper available. Like Joe and Mary, can you imagine having 3 different versions of your estate plan, and everyone says this one's the most current one, and your beneficiaries have no clue which one's the most current one. They have different dates on here. They could say this one's a current one. Do you know your software platform will say exactly which one's the most current one? Because it's the latest one that was uploaded in the encrypted cloud. Now, does that make you feel better knowing that there's only one version that's memorialized and documented in an encrypted cloud? Right? And they're going to say no. No, they're going to say yes. So does that answer your question?
Pablo and Alex, I had just a question, and I could save it for the after you guys are going through everything you want to present today. But my question, it's a little bit related, but it was really about the structure of the trust. If they're picking, can they switch from, AB from a standard to an AB? If they're choosing a irrevocable trust, wouldn't that one sort of thing, the things on the trust provisions tab, that's really, I had questions about that. So if you want to answer that stuff, later on, we could, that's one thing I had questions about.
Sure.
Well, go ahead, Pablo.
No, Alex, I was going to say, I don't know if you want to take a couple minutes now. But I do want to tackle it. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do it at the end of the call?
I'm going to do it at the end.
Okay. Yeah, let's continue on here. That's a good question, Raul. And hey, and I know that you've been in communication with Trisha, right? So we'll make sure to set up a call too, in case we can't answer everything on this call like last time. We can certainly get on another call outside of the meeting. Okay.
Great.
All right. So our next one is, hey, how are you able to do this, Alex? I know you wanted to be an attorney at one point. I know you're a super smart guy, but how are you able to do this if you're not an attorney?
So that when you bring it up, again, when you're talking to them on a discovery call. Now, here's the next thing that people don't really understand about our platform is that our platform is really produced by estate planning attorneys. The National Estate Planning Attorney Group help us put this platform together. And then we have estate planning attorneys that constantly review changes in every state and make updates to the software as required. So the beauty of this platform is these are attorney drafted documents. So that's why, attorneys are involved in the process. Let me just kind of correct your assumption. Attorneys are involved in the process. They're involved in the back end, making sure that all the documents that are produced are legal documents, so that when you get it signed, witnessed, and notarized, these are going to be effective in your state of residence. And I would handle it that if they just ask about that, the same answers like, oh, that's a great question. Why is that important to you? You do that just so then they say, well, I just want to make sure it's legal. Oh, absolutely. And then you go into, what it is just said. Because the people make the assumption you're doing this without an attorney. Actually, that's not true. We're doing this with attorneys. That's who put this whole thing together. So that's what's interesting about it is people think that, our answers have to be adversarial. We're actually agreeing with them. It's like, yeah, I would never want to do this process without an attorney. And in fact, we don't do it without attorneys. We do it with attorneys. So that's how you
I love that.
smash that one.
Yep. And I love the the ask that you say is that why is that important to you? That's a great question. And it's not a like, well, obviously it's important because I want to know attorneys are involved, but it's not, it's also assuming, or not assuming that you know the reason why they're asking. They might be asking because maybe they had an attorney and they've gone through this process and it didn't, it didn't work out the way that they liked, or they spent way too much money and realized that they might have to spend that kind of money again because it's been 5 years or 10 years. And so it's a really important question to ask. Why is that important to you? Before, like Alex said, before we just blurt out an answer, right? But that's why I also like the idea of saying, hey, that's a great question, Alex. Generally, here's why other people have asked that same question. It's because they look at me, they know I'm not an attorney, and they're wondering if they're getting the appropriate documents for their, so that when it's their time, their kids are going to get their stuff like you want yours to get, right? I agree 100%. Like, I wouldn't want that to happen to my kids and not have valid documents or this and that, which is exactly why attorneys are involved, right? They actually are the on the compliance and on the estate planning attorney documents drafting part of the business, right? So we're just here offering this as a solution. But it's interesting because the next question, Alex, I think ties right into that, which is how can I be sure that that this estate plan and accompanying documents, that they're going to work when the time comes, right? Now, here's the thing, Alex. Generally, people aren't going to ask it this way. This is you can tell that the attorneys were the ones that kind of drew up these questions, right, as they were creating this manual. But really, what are they going to ask? They're going to say, Alex, how do I know that these are going to work when the time comes, right? How do I know that when that power of attorney is executed, or when that, when my spouse goes to the bank with this power of attorney, with the financial power of attorney, or when they're on the advance directives and the nurse in the hospital wants to know who's got the advance directives, here in the family, that they won't be turned away. Right. And I think it kind of goes back to this idea of attorneys being involved, right?
Well, yeah, it's sort of this mistaken notion that, that the attorneys are the arbiter of what's legal and what isn't. And that's not true. The courts are the arbiter of what's legal and what's not legal. Right. And so what happens is, so I always like to ask more qualifying questions. When they say that are going to work, it's like, so which documents were you particularly concerned about? Well, the estate plan. Well, our estate plan comprises 6 sections. Each one is a standalone document. So are you talking about the irrevocable living trust? Are you talking about your living will, advance directive? Are you talking about the financial power of attorney? Which particular section were you interested in? Well, the whole thing. Okay. Well, yeah. Most of our clients have the same desire that everything will be implemented. So do you understand how the whole estate and probate process works? And they're going to say, well, I think I do. Okay, so explain it to me. How do you think it works? And then they'll blah, blah, blah. They typically won't really even know. It's like, well, let me explain to you what our estate plan program does for you. So here's what happens. Let's say you and Mary get this estate plan, and you get all the pieces of the estate plan: the revocable living trust, living will advance directive, the financial healthcare power of attorney, the HIPAA waiver, etc., and any other provisions you choose. Okay, and then let's say, Joe, you pass away first. The estate plan is still a living document that exists that Mary can then change however she needs for when she dies. So when Mary dies, then your estate plan, particularly the revocable living trust, becomes irrevocable, and everything inside that, as far as all your assets and everything that you've outlined, all your decisions are then implemented by your secondary trustee. Okay, so does that make sense so far? Once Mary dies, that estate plan and all your wishes are then implemented by your secondary trustee. So you're probably thinking, well, is anyone going to review it to do it? It's like, not really. What happens is your secondary trustee applies for a tax ID number. That's what makes your trust an entity from which then it starts distributing assets. That's really all that happens. A very simple process. And so in the 11 years that our software platform has been around, and over 144,000 estate plans have been produced, everything's gone the way that the clients wanted it to go as far as distribution of assets. So, you know, when the time comes, everything will be implemented the way that you wanted within the estate plan. Does that make sense? Oh, so yeah, because the legal entity, it is what it is. It's like, I'll give you an example. So when you sell your car and you create a contract with a client, do you file that anywhere? Well, no. Okay. So it becomes a legal document unless there's a dispute, right? And that's all we're talking about. If there's a dispute, can it stand up to legal scrutiny? And the way that your plan is, it stands up to legal scrutiny because these are produced by lawyers, you know, lawyers, estate planning lawyers. So is that what your concern is, that, you know, that these are legal documents that will stand up in court? Yeah. Well, like I said, lawyers have put this together. These are attorney drafted documents, so you'll be fine. So those are some of the words I use to, you know, deal with that. That's really part of the first question regarding the attorney question. So
yeah, and here's the thing. This is why it's so important, guys. And we talk about this week after week. Like, you know, some of these objections these are kind of objections that we would get from somebody that we don't know, right? Somebody that's new, that's not a client that we've worked with, that's not a, you know, someone that we know. Like, you're not going to get this from, chances are, if you're in the insurance business, you've written an application with that person, right? Or or any financial services, you've done something with them already online, right? And so they see the power of utilizing documents through an online portal, whether it was in Zoom or in person, and you did it on your tablet or your laptop. And this is an extension of that, right? This is borrowing from that industry of technology in the fintech space, that those documents, they are going to be executed properly when the time comes, right? So this is an extension of that, and you're generally not going to see these kind of questions from people that you're already working with. Again, kind of going through, and especially if you're presenting this correctly, these are all kind of handled up front. And by the way, our estate plan, you know, coordinators, concierges, they do a fantastic job on the first call, on that discovery call, to present this in a fashion where these things are already handled up front, right? I mean, if I brought on Kyle and Kendra, they would probably say, I'd be willing to bet they don't get these objections from clients, right? Like, not before they go to buy. They're like, oh, you know, I need to make sure that these documents are going to work when the time comes. If that customer is moving forward, they're moving forward. And so really the last question that's on here, and we can just cover this one. Again, it's not one that we'll generally hear, but it does kind of lie to the fact that that their other option is working directly. One of their other options is working directly with an attorney. And so it says, hey, this looks like a lot of work, and I prefer to have someone like an attorney do this for me. Okay, so this wasn't a lead up. Number 5 isn't like a lead up to all the others that were asked. This is like something that if you would, you know, talk about what estate plan documents does, somebody might say, well, you know what, Alex, that just looks like a lot of work. And I'd probably feel more comfortable if an attorney did this for me, right? I feel like some of what you're going to share is what you've already shared in some of these other objections. But
yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I kind of.
It's a drill down.
Mhm.
We call these wishy-washy words, and wishy-washy words are words that have no meaning unless you ask the question. People like to put on this, we call it in the Sandler sales system world, mutual mystification, where they mystify you and you let them mystify you because they say nebulous words. So one of the most important things about asking questions when you're dealing with objections is clarifying wishy-washy words. So this looks like a lot of work, and I prefer an attorney to do this for me. So, that's a great question. What is it about that concerns you? Well, it seemed like just all this stuff, and I just want to make sure I'm guided properly or whatever. See, they're going to give you much more information there. And then you can ask, okay, so the part that it sounds to me like the part you're worried about is the do part, right? So what do you think an attorney does in the estate planning process? What do you think they do? Well, they put together my estate plan. Absolutely. But how do you think they do that? I don't know. Okay. Well, here's how they do that, which is no different than how we do it. We're going to ask you a lot of questions about who your beneficiaries are, your assets, how you want to die, how you want these things distributed to the people you love. We're going to ask you a lot of questions. So in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to make this process super simple and easy for you, because we're going to ask you all the questions you need to answer, which is what an attorney would do. And then we take your answers to those questions, and then we're going to implement that in our software platform. Exactly what an attorney would do is they would put it in their software platform. And then once they have all the basics in there, then we run it by you and see and have you make other decisions that we can't just make based on the data you give us. But we'll have, 80% of it done. Then we'll meet with you, and then you answer just a few more questions on what you want, how you want your assets distributed, and then questions like, the manner at which you want to be, resuscitated and those sorts of things. Those are really all the simple things. So what we do is we do this for you, but we do it with you, but we make it super easy and simple. So you know exactly what you need to do and decisions you need to make. And there we go. So, and that's typically where this comes from, is they think it's all this work and they're just looking for someone to lead them through it, which they think is an attorney, which is actually us.
Yeah, there's and again, for those of you that have been doing this for a while, chances are you didn't do your first couple alone, right? You'd work with someone like myself or Kyle or Kendra, or any other of our coordinators in the past. But what'll happen is you don't have to know all these things up front. Remember, the main thing with these objections is, these are the kinds of conversations that you're going to be having on like a discovery call, right? The first and foremost thing that you want to do is you want to get folks to have a discovery call, which is really the process of laying the foundation of what EP Docs does, how it's going to be helpful for them, but also finding out what their goals are. What are their wishes? Like, why is this important for them? And in that conversation is where you'll be able to, again, set the standard for, heading or meeting these objections up front, but then also drawing out what their real needs and desires are, right? So you won't have these kind of objections with clients that you've worked with, because they'll have understood, again, kind of borrowed credibility and borrowed trust from previous transactions and business that you've done with them, will lead you into a more comfortable conversation with them. And that's why we suggest and urge is to say, hey, listen, if you're not there yet in having this kind of conversation, like some of the things that Alex has shared, make sure that you let them know, hey, we have coordinators that can literally walk you through it. If you went and tried to get 30 minutes with an attorney, what they would call a free consult, they're going to basically tell you at the end of those 30 minutes, they're going to ask you if you want to do business with them, right? If we're moving forward, and they're going to tell you exactly what it's going to cost, and those numbers are going to blow them out of the water. Okay. With us, it's really more of an assumptive that, hey, we believe that your clients want to get taken care of. Kyle and Kendra are going to walk your clients very systematically through what the process is of that discovery call. And then at the end, we're just going to assume that they're going to want to move forward, and we let them know what the cost is to do that with us, or that they can, their other option is they can go work with an attorney. And, Alex always says, hey man, I'm a closer. I say absolutely. But why not just save your customer the time and the heartache? I mean, who was it? Somebody just said in here in the chat, said, I just had that objection yesterday. Monica, you had that objection yesterday, right? I'm curious to know,
Yes.
right? I'm curious to know. So kind of walk me through how that came to that point. And it sounds like it was this last one. Looks like a lot of work. I want to have an attorney do that for me. Kind of walk me through, and how did you all leave it?
Well, I pretty much said what Alex had said to her. I told her, I asked her, because she was saying that she just wants somebody to just take it and do it. I'm like, well, where do you think the attorney's going to get the information that he needs to enter into the estate plan for you? She said, well, it's going to have to come from me. I said, well, exactly. I said, so we give you documentation so that you can outline how you want things, and then we put it on paper for you. But pretty much the same thing you said. And this is somebody that I knew. She called me yesterday, and I hadn't talked to her in a while. And then come to find out that she lost her husband a few months ago, and so now she's wanting to do an estate plan. But she was, like I said, she was talking about she wanted an attorney to do. I'm like, well, we're using the same software that attorneys are using. I said the only thing they're doing is getting the information from you, putting it in the system, and it's spitting out the documents just like what we do. I said, well, these documents are attorney drafted documents. I said, we have attorneys that are working with us behind the scenes. I said, well, I have a license to do these documents. So you're getting the same thing if you go to an attorney. And I said, how much you think an attorney would charge you to do this? She was like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, since you're so concerned, I said, why don't you check with an attorney, see how much they're going to charge you to do that? I said, they're going to charge you about an hour. And then come back to me and let me know.
I think, and I think that's definitely an approach to what I would recommend, Monica, is, and kind of like Alex has shared on this call, you always want to agree with them, right? You always want to agree that their concern, that their question is a valid one, right? And I'm sure you did this, but I would just, for the emphasis of this call, since we're talking about objections, is always just let people know. Absolutely. Like I agree. I would 100% want an attorney to do this work. But let me just share, right? What we have found, what our clients have found, what most of the people that we work with have found was that the process that we take our clients through, right? The simple 4-step process, right? If you don't know those, it's discovery call, creating the estate plan, funding the estate plan, and handing over the keys, right? That process is the same exact process that attorneys take you through, except actually that's not true, because most of them don't fund the estate plan or don't fund the trust. But the process of collecting that documentation or collecting that information from the questionnaire, uploading it into the software, and getting you the documents that you wanted, that happens generally through a software system. It happens with a paralegal or some type of a coordinator, and then they just print it off. And we, and what our clients have found is that they can get that same exact service, but with the extra touch of actually funding the trust, and actually then being able to go back and update it as often as they want without having to have all the attorney fees and fingerprints all over the work, that you could save a ton of time and money, and actually get started right away and do this in the comfort of your own home. Right. So when you agree with them, you let them know, okay, gotcha. This person is validating my thoughts here. And then you say it's okay to move forward with us. but thanks for sharing that, Monica. I also, Alex, do you have any closing thoughts here before we take a couple questions? And I do want to touch on a question that Nerva had added from last week that we didn't get to, but go ahead.
Yeah, the sometimes even what happens when you have people that you're more familiar with, family, friends, that you know, you sometimes you get into that mode of, just kind of answering back and debating or whatever. This is where you really got to massage the whole process with answering their objections. So like she comes back with that, I go, yeah, you know what that is? I totally agree. That would be my concern too. So tell me more about that. Why do you feel it's important to go to attorney? And she'll tell you, well, I need to know that blah, 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 blah. It's like they're going to why they think they need attorney. It's like, absolutely. You know what? We use attorneys too. So our process creates legal documents drafted by attorneys. And so it's doing exactly what you want it to do, because you want to make sure these are legal documents, right? Is that what your concern is? Again, you're starting to narrow it down with what it is. And she says, well, yeah, I do. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we do. We make sure these documents are legal through our attorneys. So you really are vicariously working with attorneys through our software platform. Does that make sense? And usually, that would be enough because you like nailed it down. But that's kind of how it massage that conversation where you're not just telling them and answering back. You're asking questions, narrowing it down, and then making them feel comfortable. So anyway, go ahead, Pablo. Let's answer questions.
That's very good. I appreciate that. And again, guys, it's all about creating trust and creating a relationship with the clients as you're walking them through this, right? Instead of maybe combative isn't the right word, but it's not just like you said, a Q&A. What can you throw at me that I can't answer, right? It's not that. It's let's really drill down and find out why this is important to you. And then you'll see that through, what our documents do, what our process does, it can help, it can be the solution for that. So yeah, absolutely. Nerva last week had a question, and I just wanted to, I'd emailed her an answer, but I wanted to kind of bring it up on the call here. It wasn't so much, I guess it could be an objection. It really isn't. It's more of a situational. But, Alex, I kind of wanted to talk to you about this one, right? So sometimes husband and wife aren't always on the same page. And so this one, she had sent me a note. She said, hey, it's a couple whose the wife wants to do an estate plan, but the husband doesn't want to. Now, I don't know all the details of why he doesn't want to, but she said, I think it's because he doesn't understand the importance of it. It's a blended family. They have a home together, but no children. And she wants to make sure that her children are taken care of in case something happens. So we talked about blended families a couple of weeks back. But what happens, Alex, if you want to do a trust, but Ginny doesn't want to do a trust, right? I want to do a trust. Andreina doesn't want to do a trust. Can we do it? Can I still do it? Does it make sense? Or do I have to have two separate trusts? What happens in those cases?
Okay, so that is a foundational issue in their relationship that a trust won't solve, right? Meaning that, so I suppose I've run into this before, and the reason why they had a couple did separate trusts is because it was very complicated. I don't know that, and so the part of me that knows this can be a problem, because what they're bringing up is this is a problem. It's a problem because the other person doesn't want to do it. Why don't they want to do it? So I believe Frank has told me that, they can do separately. Like, I don't know if Carl's ever dealt with this where a married couple did one of the spouses did one and the other didn't. And this is where you get into, is a community property state, there's complications relative to, but you can't legally have someone sign a legal document that doesn't have the intent, the proper intent, because you don't have intent, then it's an invalid document. Therefore, the trust in and of itself, if they're signing it against their will, they can actually, if they're beneficiaries, they can maybe sue the trustee. It's very messy, man. So,
Alex, here's what I said, because I'm of, if they're not on board, then I'm just like, then I'm not on board, right? If they're both not on board, then I'm not on board. But basically what I said is to work with us, and again, I said they'd have to both be on board. Otherwise we'd be towing that line, right, of giving legal advice to the wife who wants to do something, and that's certainly not what we do, right? We are not attorneys. I said if they'd like to get on a discovery call with one of our concierges, right, both of them, husband and wife, then you can certainly set them up to do that, and we can walk them through the importance of an estate plan. But guys, I don't want you to have to like overthink it and try to figure this out and see if it's going to be, a legal battle, or if there's, but like Alex said, I mean, there's generally a bigger issue there. I mean, can't imagine how the conversation goes if you're trying to offer them life insurance, right? Husband wants to do it, wife doesn't want to do it. I mean, if they're not going to do it with the trust, are they doing it everywhere else, right? Or with the estate plan. So that's kind of my thought. Kyle, had you dealt with that previously?
Yeah. I had one case like that where one spouse was on board doing it. The other one was not. And it kind of ended up and got stuck in limbo waiting for an answer, because the spouse that was not on board would never get on a call to talk. Because I mean, there is a case where it could just simply be they don't understand what you're doing and why this is important. And once it gets explained out, they're like, oh, okay, well, now I get it. We're on board. But this one, they never engaged. And a couple of months later, I got word from the agent that they were going to be getting a divorce, which did not surprise me. So, yeah, I mean, again, maybe it's a case where they just don't understand and you need a simple conversation to get them on board. But if they do understand what we're doing and they're absolutely not on board, I'm with you guys. There's bigger issues at play in that marriage. And unfortunately, yeah, if they're both not on board, you can't be on, because you can't.
Right. You're setting yourself up for,
yeah.
and like Alex said,
It's going to be an absolute mess, and you don't want that.
It's like the video, right? Our video on probate sucks video.
Yeah.
And the attorney says, if there's any issues with the family, I don't even start working with them. So even if an attorney who gets paid hourly won't take that type of client on, why should we?
Right. Yeah, and don't get fooled, right? Don't fall into the trap of just because one person wants to do it, then there's something there. Because what we've seen, and Alex, kind of like you said, that the estate plan, the trust isn't gonna solve that problem, right? It might actually help expose and bring more problems in.
Remember, we're trying to be a blessing to them. We're trying to provide them a service that will be there for them after when the last one passes away. We're not about getting a commission check. This is not about getting commission check. It's serving the families properly. And that's really ultimately, at the end of the day, how we serve, right? So
let's take just hey, Alex, I don't know if you've got a couple more minutes. Okay, let's do that. Ro, I saw you grab some time on my calendar. I appreciate you doing that for tomorrow. But let's touch on your question that you had earlier.
Yeah. So, can the beneficiary, like I have a person who asked me, they basically have one person in their life. It's an older guy. He's got a nephew that he wanted to leave everything to and be the beneficiary. Can that beneficiary be the trustee as well?
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's very common when we do these that the trustees are going to be their kids, or the successor trustees are their kids, who are also beneficiaries. Yeah, those are two different roles, and one person can have them both. Absolutely. In fact, a lot of times when I do this, like the order of successor trustees, along with healthcare and financial powers of attorney, oftentimes it'll be the same exact people in the same exact order.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Okay,
know,
cool.
you know, like for example, with my parents, with their estate plan, I'm the #1 successor trustee. I'm the first financial power of attorney. I'm the first healthcare power of attorney. I'm the second beneficiary. That's only because I have an older sister, and I don't like her anyway. But no, so yeah, you
Yeah.
can have one person fill numerous different roles in that estate plan because each one of them is a standalone role.
Okay.
Right.
And then some of the planning he might have is maybe talking with his nephew and figuring out who his successor might be, just in case, as a contingency. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So
go ahead.
just I want to touch on that real quick. When it comes to successor trustees, there's two ways to do it. The method most people choose is having a primary successor with a backup. They could also do co-successor trustees of having multiple people with equal authority. But yeah, you always want to have a primary and a backup to them.
Yeah, no, this is just someone who just doesn't have a lot of other people in his life, you know. He
Yeah.
was married, he got divorced. Anyways, so the only other questions I had really were about a little bit of the nitty-gritty of the AB trust. I just needed some clarification about that. And I'm sure the questions, you know, other people might have the same questions. And then the irrevocable option. I'm reading through the you know, the training manual here, and I have the demo open on the other window here, and I'm just reading through, and it just isn't 100% clear. So for the AB trust, you know, it says that it's splitting into a trust A and a trust B. And it basically says here, this is word for word what it says. Trust B is for the deceased's share of the assets and the beneficiaries identified in the trust. So what does that really look like? I mean, does that even make, if it's just one single person passing it on to another single person, does this even make sense? This person, I mean, he might have some wealth. I don't know if he's at the $5 million mark, but what is that really for?
Well,
If you just talk about that a little bit.
the AB trust is generally going to be for married couples, not a single individual.
And I saw that it was for people that, you know, had, kids from a previous marriage and they remarried. So what is the split of the trust A and the B? Like, what is that defined purely by the client? What's that look like?
Well, that comes down to the funding process. I do want to let you know that is kind of what I call a 1% question, just simply because 99% of the trusts we do are standard. AB trusts are very, very rare, but when they do happen, in my experience so far, every time it's been a blended family, and it's just simply about, you know, he came into the second marriage with kids and assets, she came in the same thing, and they want to keep them separate upon death. So the reason you do that AB trust is whoever passes away first has the A trust. Whoever is the survivor will get the B trust. And basically, when you're doing the funding process, you're defining, because typically in those cases, they're all going to have separate assets. They're not going to have joint assets. He'll have his stuff, she'll have her stuff. So all of his assets are going to be in his trust. And once he passes away, those are locked and you can't change anything with them. So that way it will go to his kids, and same thing for her. That's why we do the AB trust. But again, I mean, by all means, do your research, get familiar with them, ask questions. Just understand those are the exception. I think I've done 2 of them ever. I mean, I've
And
been doing this 4 years, and I think I've done 2 of them.
Does the AB trust, does the A trust and the B, do they have 2 different names?
It's just A and B because we don't know who's going to pass away first.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and the first one that passes away automatically becomes the A trustee, and the survivor is the B trustee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That makes it so much more clear. And so does that almost imply that it becomes irrevocable when that first spouse dies?
Yeah.
Okay,
Their-
so
their
they
assets,
are
Well-
locked into. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's kind of two different questions in there. So with an AB trust, yes, when the first spouse dies, their portion of the trust becomes irrevocable.
Mhm.
But the survivor still has the ability to make changes to their trust. If
Okay.
it's a standard trust and they choose the irrevocable option, that means when the first one passes, the entire trust becomes irrevocable.
Okay, let's talk about that because that leads right into the other question. So when it becomes irrevocable, it says here, this is right from the trust provisions tab here. Trust should become irrevocable upon the death of the first spouse. Surviving spouse may use trust funds for health, welfare, and maintenance purposes. But let's say you're funding the trust, you have the deed, you have titles, and you got investment accounts, right? So what's happening to that deeded property once it hits irrevocable status upon the death of the spouse?
Well, basically what that's saying is the surviving spouse has access and freedom to do with the assets what they need to do. But when we're talking about the trust becomes irrevocable, that's talking about they can't be changing trustees, they can't be changing up beneficiaries, those kinds of assets in the trust become irrevocable. But
Can
the
they
surviving
sell
spouse,
that property?
the surviving spouse still has to have the ability to access and do with assets what they need.
So
If
they
they
can
have to sell the house, then they
Yeah.
have the freedom to sell the house. If they're taking income off of retirement accounts or getting different vehicles, like they can still do all of that.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
Raul. So they can sell the property. If it's a rental property, obviously they can,
Yep.
they're the trustees, so they would be managing the income from that property, whether it's rental or again, if it was a sale, for example.
But in a irrevocable trust, I thought that the trustee has to be separate from the beneficiary. Isn't that the case where the trustee cannot be the beneficiary because that's the whole point of the trust. They're having asset protection, so to speak, because
I
they're
think
not
you're
in-
thinking of irrevocable trusts from the beginning, like an irrevocable,
so this option.
not a revocable. Remember, this is a revocable living trust, right? For the purposes of avoiding probate. This isn't an
Right.
irrevocable trust for the purposes of
Asset-
minimizing, the asset taxes and
Right.
and protecting that in that regard is to is to make sure that the heirs get the appropriate assets and to avoid the probate process.
But what about this irrevocable option? Does it not literally turn it into an irrevocable trust?
It does, but hey, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't that just mean that nothing can be changed as regards to who the beneficiaries are, who the trustee on that trust is going to be? Any of those roles cannot be changed, and no other assets can now be brought out or brought into that trust. Is that correct?
Yeah, because a revocable and an irrevocable trust are different legal documents. So
Right.
choosing the irrevocable option doesn't automatically convert it to a completely different type of trust. It just invokes the irrevocable option inside the revocable trust. So yeah, there's again, at the end of the day, it's always going to be a revocable trust. So
I
the
understand.
survivor has access to the assets. Like Pablo said, it's just trustees, beneficiaries, various aspects like that cannot be changed.
I got you. It doesn't become like an asset protection trust.
Correct.
It's literally just you can't make the changes to the beneficiaries of the trust. It's not literally transforming it into that whole other legal entity structure.
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
That was my question. I was reading this thing and frankly, I just, if someone asks me, I don't want to have that deer in the headlights and not be able to answer them because what's written in here, just, you know, it wasn't exactly as clear as you just stated, Kyle. So
Well, I will say I understand that sentiment. I share it. I hate people having clients ask me questions I can't answer it on the spot, but I will say this. I've never had a single client get mad at me when I say, hey, that's a great question. I'm 95% sure of the answer. Do you mind if I reach out to an expert and let you know what they say? I've never had a single person get mad at me. In fact, typically they go, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just let me know when you find out. They're never mad about it.
and then just
Well-
to piggyback on one thing you had said, Kyle, you said that your parents have you as the financial agent, power of attorney, and also the trustee, and as the second beneficiary. Now, when you go to that tab for the financial agent, it says your financial agent will have the power to make basic funding decisions regarding assets not already funded into the trust. So really, when we're funding them, when we're getting the assets funded in the trust in that last step, ideally, everything is going to be funded, and this financial power of it, this is almost like a pour over will kind of thing, where anything that they forgot to fund into the trust will have, you know, this living, when you're incapacitated and still living. It seems like, is that really what it's there for?
Yeah, well, for starters, you mentioned the pour over trust. That is part of the documentation. We have a pour over trust built into every estate plan for the very reason you thought, you know, if you were supposed to fund it and just didn't get around to it, that pour over will catches it. But when it comes to power of attorney, they're a springing power of attorney. So, you know, like for my parents, I can't just go in and start doing stuff. Like they have to be incapacitated to then give me the power. And really, as a power of attorney, it gives me access to their financial accounts to just simply maintain their life. I can't go in or I should not go in and start changing up a bunch of different accounts and things like, no, it's just to be able to make sure bills are paid and their current life is being upheld.
And which tab, I guess final question would be, is there because I was going through all the tabs while you guys were going through the presentation here. Is there a specific tab that has the pour over will, you know, your wishes? Is it just the other options section?
It's just standard language that's built into the documents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just standard language that's there that says what it has to say for the state that the client is in.
Right.
Basically,
okay.
hey, this is here as a catch-all in case anything ever got missed to make sure that it all bypasses probate. But we absolutely tell everybody, never, ever, ever rely on that pour over will. It is a safety net as the absolute backup.
Mhm. Very good. And Kyle, with that, let's finish up, guys. I know we're at 20 past. Raul,
Yeah.
man, 2 weeks in a row, awesome questions. Thank you. We'll have to start, you and I can start creating content together just based off of those questions. And but we'll chat tomorrow. Alex, thank you again for sharing today. Kyle, likewise, and we'll see you guys next week on our call. All right. Rock and roll, everybody. Have a great
Thanks
week.
so much, guys. Thank
All right.
you.